Welcome to the lab. This episode's going to be a little chill. We're just going to hang out and talk about some crafting and my thought process on how to do some things, our ideas that I come up with, and about hobby chores and how they can be enjoyable. So last night I spent about 4 hours putting these pillar templates together. I'll probably insert an overlay about how I did that and clip it together. But the basic gist was these came from Shifting Lands off of the US website. And I bought the 3 different versions of pillars that they have, one in each size so that I have a wide variety. I didn't even realize when I ordered them that the pillar templates are double-sided. So when I use these, each one can do 2 pillars. So technically I have 30 completely different pillars, 10 in each size. So these should basically be every pillar template that I would ever need because of just how awesome they look. I guess technically I could build a building that uses small, medium, and large pillars of the same style so that the building would look the same, and if that was the case, I guess I would go buy the other 2 sets that I would need, but I think this is a good foundation to start anyways. That was my thought, and why I did all of these was so that I would have variation. And I also want to see if I can use these pillars in different ways. They actually talk about it, funny enough. I didn't see it on the website, but in the instructions that came with these, they talked about splitting them lengthwise in half so that you could kind of butt them into a wall and not waste foam, and it would look like they were, into the wall. And that you could cut them for different, like, stools or not pillars. What's the word they used here? Give me a second. It's funny because I was thinking about doing this and then they mentioned it in here, which is pretty good. Obviously, the people who build this stuff craft as well. Ornaments and pedestals. So what I really want to do is just go through and learn how to use these templates and make one of every pillar. I figure by my 30th pillar, I should know how to use these things. So we're going to break out the hot wire cutter and get to work just learning, really. And in between that, I will show you what I'm doing. And I guess, just like I'm doing right now, just talking to you and telling you what's going through my head. I did notice, after these were done, I have some space up here on my paint shelf that even the large ones fit in here. And I think I'm going to store these up here. They should all fit. Put them in alphabetical order. Just make me feel better for no reason. This is what I don't know, I enjoy this part of the process as well. It seems like maybe I shouldn't, but just doing hobby chores can be nice too, because I'm excited for the potential that these have. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense or if you can see me while standing up there. I'm excited for the potential that these pillars have. They, will save a bunch of time designing bits for buildings and terrain or ornaments or things like that, but they just look cool. I don't know. I get it now. I'm not a mechanic. I've never been a mechanic. I'm not inclined to work on cars or anything like that. But picking up this hobby has definitely made me appreciate how excited someone can get over a tool or over a process on how to fix something, and understand why there's such a huge community behind cars. I mean, I kind of got it before people got excited about it, but for me, the mental connect just wasn't there. I look at a car and all I see is the superficial outside. Maybe that's dumb, but I don't care what's on the inside. If it can get me from A to point B, I'm happy. I just don't care. I care about fuel efficiency because it saves me money. But otherwise, I'm not looking to race. I'm not looking to, show up and flaunt anything. Flaunt's a wrong word. That makes it sound negative. I understand wanting to show off something nice that you own. It's really, really cool. And a lot of cars look really, really cool. But I get it now. Getting into this hobby, I get it. Like, I just enjoy making something in the process and listening to other people talk about how excited they are for the same things. It just fills me with so much joy, you know? And so the chores, quote-unquote chores, that come with the hobby are also very enjoyable because it helps. It's all about the process. Does that make sense? For me, I enjoy doing it for the most part. Yes, some things can be monotonous, but then at the end you look at the design that you've made. I don't know, it's just fun. It's just cool. Anyways, maybe these won't all fit. I thought I had enough room. Just barely. Well, maybe I can set these. I can layer them. Aha! Oh, they fell inside the other templates. That's no good. That's no bueno. I wanted them up here to be visible so that I could look up and look at the edge and see the shape that I would want. Maybe I'll put these smaller ones down below. They can fit on some of these smaller racks. I think that's what I'm going to have to do, is separate them. I think there's a pretty good spot for them now. My paint rack until I get more paint, which is inevitable in this hobby. I know they'll fit there. I'm just going to leave these all out. So how I made these, or how I built these, I didn't quite follow the instructions that came from the Shifting Land people. I do have this square ruler, and for me it was square enough. I'm hoping, anyways, that I didn't mess it up. So, grab one of these big ones and explain. These all came in baggies. And how it works, you get your set of these, or a set of these, which we'll figure out whether or not you want them. I'm sure the answer is going to be yes, get these, but that's part of the reason why I want to test them all too, is to like see the shapes and see if they're cool. Which they looked cool. That's the whole reason I got them, but yeah. There's mirrored sides, so you want the letters on the same end of the pillar, but facing outwards, and that's when you get the same shape. So, you know, I'll run this through the hot wire, and then I'll punch out the, basically the whole thing is we're going to cut a box of foam that fits in here perfectly, square to the end here, and we run it through the edge, punch it out, flip it to the next side, run it through, cut it off, and it'll be easy to make sure it's square, because I should just be able to hold the ends, basically. These ends on all of them have a little chunk where you can just hold them in place to make sure that it's even. So I just dumped them out of the bag. They were all punched out already. And I used some 5-minute, 15-minute, whatever it is, Gorilla Glue epoxy, because that's what I had in this area. I bought a box of these. Open a window. This stuff stinks to high heaven, so I'm sure there's plenty of fumes. I had the window behind the camera wide open. It's right next to my desk. I figured that was good enough. And I basically pushed just a little bit so that there was enough pressure for some to come out, wiped it off, pulled this back up, mixed it, because it would set by the time I was done with one, so I had to do that 15 times. And that's what I used the leftover stuff from the dire wolves. The waxed boxes and the really nice instruction booklets that come in GW stuff is thick enough that the goop won't seep through it like I'm assuming normal paper would. I wouldn't just use sheet paper out of a notebook. I feel like that's just going to absorb the oils from the epoxy and seep through to your desk or whatever. That stuff is thick enough and waxy enough that it's not the case. So I just mix up a little bit, and I would cover the edges of where they connect fully, and then obviously I put it together, and it was still wobbly, all get out, and then I would take this right-angled straight edge, or carpenter square. I'm not sure what. I know it's a ruler, but I know it's also not 100% the carpenter square. It's close enough, and I would just put it down and match it up so that it fit up against it, and then I'd basically shove it away to sit to dry, and every now and then, every like 5 minutes or so, basically when I finished one, I would go back through all of them to make sure they were still at a right angle, because even sitting there, if it was still wet enough or not set enough, it could still slant by itself just due to the weight of the thing or the shaking of the table. And I caught a couple of them that were slanting, so I would just definitely recommend, if you do the epoxy method, go through and check them after every one is done, and then go back after you make that last one to check them all again every few minutes. And then after I put them together, before I straightened them up, I should have went over this first. I took a bit of shop towel that I had, you could use paper towel I guess, and wiped off all the edges, and I took a little toothpick that I was using to apply the epoxy and put a bit on the end, and I made sure to clean up the inside corners because I didn't want any bumps in here, because I wanted these perfectly clean to perfectly fit the foam inside. And then I let them sit overnight because it was midnight and I figured several hours of epoxy sitting was not going to be a problem. And I don't plan to apply much force, but you can see these are pretty solid. I don't want to snap this off, so I'm not applying much force. The only thing I'm going to be doing with it is holding it like this or like this and running it along the wire cutter anyways. So unless I accidentally set a heavy book on these, they will be perfect. The instructions say to use a carpenter square and wood glue. I didn't want to wait for wood glue, and I don't have any wood glue, and I don't have a proper carpenter square. So I'm gonna go ahead and break out some foam and my hot wire cutter, and we'll get to work cutting some foam up and figuring out how to get nice boxes to fit into these. So I will be back with you in a moment. Probably after I figure out how to get a box to fit into these nicely. Okay, hopefully my face wasn't off camera for the first chunk of this. I just realized that I never checked until just now. Anyways, I figured it out. It's actually not that hard, but I had to play around a little bit to get it. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to take whatever, and I'll record this if I remember. I'm going to try to record a chunk of how we do this after. But you take whatever pillar you want, whatever size you want, and it's actually not perfectly square. I noticed this while I was looking at them just a little bit ago. The reason for that is this width is going to be where it squares off, and it's, I think he makes it wider so that when you cut down, it will become a perfect square. You'll see what I mean in a minute. But basically, you're going to take this and you're going to set it up to the wire. And then you take your guide, whatever guide you have, and you put it as close to it as possible so that you can push through. So that's too close. You want, because the wire is always going to take off more than the thickness of the wire. You want it just a little bit away. That's too much. It's hard to do this sideways without looking at it. As you can tell, I'm still not the best at all of this. It takes me a minute. You know, playing with it. and that's fine. It's going to take you however long it takes you. Maybe you're quicker at this than I am, especially from sideways standpoint. Boom. So somewhere about there. Cool. That'll be good enough. And then I take a piece of foam, square it off, or at least get a flat side, and you run it through at that width. Okay, that's what I did anyways. And you cut it off. And then you take that piece of foam, and you flip it sideways, and you run it through again. Cut off whatever side you want to cut off. And then you'll get a square chunk of your foam. This is whatever excess you had. Then what I did was I took that square chunk sideways and then really squared off an end. So basically I put the chunk like this, and then I turned on my hot wire cutter and I moved it forward until it was cut. That perfectly squares an end. What was left. And then I took my pillar along the square end, wherever I squared it off. Might have been here. And I lined it up. No, it's definitely this side. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I lined it up, just tip there, and then I pushed down on the other side so that there is, you'll see before I squared it off, I pushed it down, an indent. See how that indent looks? Hopefully the camera picks that up. I know I'm sitting down now. I have the camera up more because I'm going to be standing and sitting during this. But you can see how that looks, right? So then I lined it up to the hot wire cutter. The bottom portion of that, because that's going to be the top of the inside. And I turned it on and I did the same thing so that I cut a length. And that gives me a piece of foam that perfectly fits inside one of the templates. I'm proud of myself. It's simple. I'm sure maybe you guys could have figured it out faster. I don't know, I just had fun figuring it out. Anyways, let's get to testing one of these. I'm going to do it while you're on camera here. And since I'm going to be close to this, I'm putting on my ventilation mask. I don't like breathing stuff that's not air. I feel like insulation foam probably isn't good on the lungs, considering it melts and it's sticky, and who knows what else is in there. I just don't want to breathe that stuff. Make sure you either well ventilate your room, or you have some kind of ventilator to protect you. So excuse my voice. I'm about to go a little bane. Maybe you can't hear it as well, but... By the way, you can get this. I got off of Amazon for like 30 bucks. I also sometimes use just my normal dust mask. You know, whatever COVID mask you have. As long as... just don't breathe the fumes. I would recommend something more like this. This can definitely pick up and filter more, but yeah. Uncomfortable to wear for super long periods of time. I wore this while I was cutting my entire mountain range, and it was on a hot day, and I was in an apartment that was small room without central air like I have in my new house, so it got sweaty. Still worth it. Alright, so I don't think I need this. I'm just gonna pick a side of this one. I feel like this one's cool, but it's gonna be more difficult. So I'm gonna do this side first that has all these swoops, because I think I'll catch my wire in those divots a lot worse. And I think I'm gonna do it this way. We're gonna figure out. I'm really bad at this. And that's why we're gonna do all 30. really, really bad. I'm not happy with that at all. I might turn down the heat so I can go slower. Let's go down to like a 2 and see how that is. Anyways, how I'm assuming this works is you then pop out your rectangle. Easier to do it that way. And you rotate it to the next side. And you push it in. I'm so excited for this. Lower temperature is much better. Lower temperature is much better. I think I'll go a little under 2. Allows me to be a little slower so that I can get the curves right. Oh gosh, that already is looking way cooler than I... You really can't. Maybe you can, but already looking at this pattern looks way cooler than I thought it would just from looking at this. I'm glad I'm going to go through and do all these samples. I should label these. This is looking so cool. I'm going to do this next from top down. I think that might help doing it from the top. And you really don't have to hold these in place at all. If you get them perfect fit like this, the tightness of either side, either end of the pillar, keeps it stationary. I feel like this might be easier. And there she is. My first pillar. A little rough here when I accidentally was overheating it. But honestly, I don't think anybody'd notice. Especially if I texture these up to look like stone. Give them some kind of texture that's going to be unnoticeable. And now that I know to do it on the lower setting, you know, that's never an issue. Damn! Dang, that looks cool. Okay. We're down to the final 4. And I've learned quite a bit while doing this. The trick is, the small ones, I mean, just lower the setting on the pillar. Let me sit down so you can see me better. The trick is to lower the setting, the dial on the Proxon, or I guess whatever hot wire cutter you have. Hopefully it has multiple settings. You want to lower it as much as possible when there is a lot of detail. Because early on I wasn't doing that, and some of the curves are so tiny that they would not end up looking like curves, or they'd get warped in the middle. And it still looks fine, especially from a distance, no one's going to really notice. But on these small guys, you can see how tiny these ridges are here. You really want it at the lowest setting possible when going over them. And then, when you hit chunks that have these long distances, you can crank that sucker back up and just finish it off. And then when you get back to detail, you slow back down. So, I've been learning a lot to do that. I've never done that before. When using a Proxon cutter, changing the dial like halfway through, but it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's a tool, it's got multiple different ways to use it. It should be adjustable in the middle of a job. So, something I've learned while working on all these. Part of the reason I wanted to crank out 30 of these pillars is because I need practice with the Proxon. All I've really done is cut out squares or random designed chunks for ground covering or rocks or whatever. Nothing really difficult. and I'd like to be able to use this thing for more than just that. So these templates are definitely teaching me a lot. Also, something I learned was in, gosh, where is it? One of these bad boys. This one? Is this it? Yeah. This guy. I'm not gonna show it off too much, but you can see here it's a little wobbly. When I was pushing it out, I accidentally pushed there, and it snapped it a little bit. Something I could fix with some glue, because it's not totally broken off and it's a perfect fit. But make sure when you're pushing these guys out, do it slowly on either end where it's solid. Don't let one go too far over the other, especially for pillars that have these very thin bits in the middle. I've also labeled all of these, and I'm going to go through when I'm, oops, hold on, that guy fell over and I can't just fix him because he's broken in the middle. There we go. I've labeled all these, and I'm going to set them up with the, that doesn't really matter that if I grab the right one or not, with the template and the correct pillar on either side, and I'll take a bunch of pictures of each one, and I will show them somewhere in this video. They're probably being overlaid right now, so that you can see detailed wise what these pillars roughly look like. Like I said, these early ones I was a little bit rough on, a little bit there, here and there, but once you get the hang of them, you can get something that looks really nice. I actually really love the shape of the design of this pillar. It's really cool. This one, though, takes forever to do because it's just detail only. There are no sections. So expect when you need to do a bunch of these, it will take you a while. But yeah, I'll put them up on either side of their templates so that you can see which one's which. That way, if you want to go buy these for yourself, all you gotta do is go to the website and match up what letter you want with the pack. They come in packs of 5 templates, A, B, C, D, E, etc. And there's only 3 sets right now, but they're really cool. Also, be aware that the larger ones have different, they all look roughly the same depending on their size, but they were smart enough to take out tiny details from the large one when they're shrunk down, because they would disappear in scale and due to heat issues on the Proxon anyways. So where some of these large ones also have small details, like this detail would either be adjusted to look slightly differently or taken out entirely so that you'd only have like the 3 rings on this pillar in the smaller size. So the rough look, depending on size, will be roughly similar, but there will be some small differences between the size. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna just finish these up real quick, and then I'll get back to you after that. Well, all the pillars are done now, and they look really cool lined up like this. They were just in kind of a pile before, but now that I've got them lined up, they look fun. I love these things so much. I definitely am going to use these in some future crafts very soon. Definitely got a better hang on this. I already talked about slowing down and turning down the heat so you can get those details without burning them away. Or just like skipping the sharp points and then coming back and clipping the bottom parts of them so that you can get a nice even cut without spending too long and again burning things away. Oh, something you gotta be careful about when using these templates is on some of these smaller sections where there's little nubs, if you're moving too fast, because the wire warps when it gets hot, it starts moving like this, and obviously if you're pulling, the wire will warp and pull whichever way you're pulling the foam is the way the wire is going to warp. So you're going to be pulling it like this, and if you're moving too fast, you can see the shape of the wire is no longer straight vertical. So if you accidentally move, and I did it on a couple of these, the bottom if you move it too fast without making sure that the wire catches back up to go around the edges of these nubs, you can end up with the bottom of the wire coming across first, which cuts right through the middle of that detail, meaning there's like a line that cuts right through it. That's something you have to be careful about, so that, you know, wait for the wire to catch up, be slow, keep that wire vertical so that you can go around the edges of these things evenly and you get that nice straight line. I also took a picture of a Space Marine. I just painted over this past weekend at a local convention. I took a buddy's painting class, and he gave out a Dark Angel for everybody to paint. Never painted a Space Marine before, so that was a lot of fun. I definitely learned a couple things from him. He does a lot of painting work. You should look him up on Facebook, Nottingham Miniatures. But I set the miniature next to all of these pillars so you can get a scale, get a sense of what they look like next to an actual mini. Something that you're probably familiar with anyways. While I was going through these, I was thinking about different ways to use them. We already talked about using them as decorations, but how do you use them as decorations, right? Well, obviously, you're going to want to dissect these pillars. I don't know if I want to dissect all of these right now. I kind of like having them as a reference. I'm going to upload all those photos to my own Google photo album so that I can like pull them up real quick and see which one of these templates I need to grab. I can flip through and see what they all look like. Feel free to use this video as a reference whenever you want. But how would you use these as different decorations? Well, one of the ways I would do that is dissecting them vertically, and I would just put this on the hot wire cutter, and I would go a little less than halfway. The reason I would do that is because you want to make them even so that they butt up into the wall. Like if I had a big flat, use something here, surface. We'll use my paintbrush case here. If I had a big flat surface and you wanted to set it up so that it was indented like that, right? You're going to want to cut just under halfway, slide it through, and then you can flip over the other piece on the Proxxon and slide it through too. And you'll end up with two halves that look like they're two halves, even though they're a little less than, that are the same exact size, so that when you put them on either side, it doesn't look a little off. And then you just leave your Proxxon like that. Obviously, you cut a bunch of these up first, and you leave your Proxxon like that, and then you slide them all through, and then you'll have a bunch of different insertable wall pillars for when you... Obviously, you don't need to see the inside of the building, and some pillars are just there for decoration in modern buildings anyways. It'll save you time cutting them in half when they're just going to be inserted into a wall anyways. The other thing you can do is obviously make pedestals, so you can just get a section of this decoration that you really like, or of the mold of the template that you really like. Obviously, I could just cut it off here, and then you'd have a really cool like pedestal to put something on. Also, something that I didn't realize while I was going through, but hit me while I was cleaning up, is the negatives. If you are clean with the negatives on this is my scrap bin. There is a lot of foam waste that comes to this hobby, and I don't want to waste everything. So anything that looks usable, or that I can think of a way that I could use it later on, I save to minimize the amount of waste. And I do have plans on making like some stone golems or something. So I figure a lot of this will be useful. But if if I get into doing some sci-fi terrain or something, these negatives would be great greeblies to put on walls to make to give like definition on something, or like look like it's conduit of some kind So if you can get if you get like a clean cut through the template, or even sections of clean cuts. I mean, look at these, the ones with the sharp angles. They look awesome. These would be perfect for bits on spaceships or indentations, or like I said, make it look like wire conduit or something. There's a lot that you could do with all of the negatives. So I kept the ones that looked reasonable, not too thin. Some of them I threw away just because they were to the point where I don't think they would be useful. Because, you know, you're cutting in, and if you don't get a clean pass, you're going to end up with a lot of like slash marks through it, which is fine. You could make it look like battle damage, but there was a lot of what I was doing, because I'm so new to all of this, just looked like hot garbage. So, but I kept roughly half of the solid negatives that I had. I'm hoping I can turn those into something later. If you have any ideas what I can do with these negatives, leave them in a comment below. I know I've asked that kind of stuff a lot, or asked for tips and comments. I've read them all. Not that there's been many comments yet, I'm still new to this, but I've read them all, and I have put them on a short list. I already have like a list of projects that I'm doing, and things that I want to finish first, like the vampire army itself, and I want to finish off the terrain for the vampire army. I'm splashing in a few things here and there that are different, just because I need a break creatively from doing just the same stuff over and over and over. Right up on my short list, one of my friends suggested that I create some ruined walls that have finds and stuff, and he sent a lot of really cool reference photos. I just don't have the materials to make finds yet, so I will be getting on that. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is, leaving your ideas in the comments is a really great way for me to then do that idea later, because it's probably an idea that I didn't actually have. So really appreciate that. Some of the ways I'm going to definitely use these pillars is some of these small ones. I'm gonna make a few. I don't know which one I'm gonna pick yet. I have an idea. It's between a couple. Specifically, I really like this one. I'm gonna use these on the mausoleum that I'm making for the graveyard. And I'm tempted to use parts of these medium-sized ones, as maybe cut them in half as the pillars on either side of the gate to the entrance of the graveyard. I'm not sure how well I could tie it into the fencing, though. That's the trouble that I'm having. It's like, how do I match this up? I mean, that doesn't look too bad. Honestly, that wouldn't look bad at all, now that I'm seeing it next to each other. I thought there would be too much of a gap between some of this, but it doesn't really look that way, does it? And that's more than... I think that looks more than realistic. I think I'm going to turn a couple of these into a gate. I would have to, I could put a little indent, could insert, yeah, I think I could insert like a pole into here and put a vertical piece that I could then build the gate off of. It'll make it look like a hinge. Yeah! No, okay, well, I just got hit with my next idea for the gate. I may do that next week. Pick a couple of these that I really like. I'll have to lay out the terrain and see what shape I like the most, but I'm definitely going to do that. Heck yeah. Well, you just saw me have an idea, so. Get this thing off of me. Forgot that I still had it on. I know this week's video has been a little more free-form. I've really enjoyed it myself. It's kind of felt like a little hangout session where I'm just talking about what I'm doing and figuring things out. It's actually been really nice. I may do something like this again in the future. Probably not for my next video, but I kind of really like this. If you approve of this kind of video, make sure you give it a thumbs up below and subscribe if you want to hang out next time. And if nothing else, I hope this video has inspired you to experiment with your hobby.